Okay guys, what we need to go over today is photosynthesis. Let's do word roots first. Photo, this means light, and then synthesis, this means to make. And remember, whenever we look at word roots, it's sometimes easier to read them backwards. So really what I'm going to do is I'm going to make something from light. Okay? So what we need to do is just go through all the really basic stuff that we should already have a pretty good understanding of for photosynthesis, right? So let's start with who, okay? So who does photosynthesis? That's going to be plants. Another fancy name for plants, these are called autotrophs. You can use these one and the same. And if we look at word roots, auto means self, and then troph, that means feeding. And so organisms that are self-feeding, those are the plants because they do photosynthesis. Then our next thing that we need to cover is why. Okay, so why do plants do photosynthesis? Well, easy way to think about it is they need to make food, right? You guys go to the kitchen and grab yourself food, or you go to the lunchroom and you guys eat lunch here, or you guys eat dinner, or you eat breakfast. You have a way to go get food so that way you can carry out cell respiration. But plants, right, like plants, no pun intended, are rooted to the ground, and if they can't move to go find a food source, then they had to come up with a mechanism to make their own. So why is they need to make food, right? But then once they make food, they can send the food to where all organisms make their energy, and that's the mitochondria. So they can send the food to the mitochondria for the process that we've been talking about for the past 2 weeks is cell respiration. Because the entire purpose, remember, of cell respiration is to make ATP. So that's why plants do photosynthesis up here, is that they have to make the food so that way they can do the process that allows them to get ATP so they can do all of their cellular functions, right? Okay, so now let's go to where. So where do plants do photosynthesis? We should recall from going through all the organelles, this is the chloroplast. Okay, remember your chloroplast kind of looks like, I don't know, maybe a football, right? So it looks something like this. And then you have these awesome little discs inside that we can talk about structurally here in a minute. And then they have all this empty space. And whenever we talk about photosynthesis, there's going to be 2 different reactions. And so one reaction will happen inside all these discs, and then the other reaction is going to happen inside all of this empty space. Now specifically in the chloroplast, I guess we go ahead and just go through it. When we talk about chloroplast structure, right? So here's my chloroplast, and then I have these discs. I'm just going to draw a couple sets. You have to imagine that chloroplasts inside plant cells are going to have a lot more. Here's one enlarged disc just so I can show you. One single disc is called a thylakoid. I know, fancy new word. And then when you have a bunch of discs stacked on top of each other, this is called a grana. Then all of the empty space in here, this is called my stroma. Now, stuff about your chloroplast is, yes, chloroplast does photosynthesis, but really we're going to look specifically at the pigments inside, right? And the pigment that my chloroplast has, you guys always say the word at some point, this is my CHLORO, this is chlorophyll. Now my chlorophyll is going to be inside that thylakoid. See, it's right there. Now, when we talk about pigments and we talk about chlorophyll, we need to go back to basic physical science so we can understand light properties, etc., etc. Remember light, okay? If we write out the rainbow, that's Roy G. Biv. And so the reason that plants appear green to us is because that chlorophyll is reflecting green back at us. That means chlorophyll is going to absorb the red, orange, and yellows, and the blue, indigos, and violets. So this is chlorophyll absorption. I think I spelled that wrong, but that's okay. Chlorophyll absorption.